We don't fully understand ourselves. To do so, we must learn about our cousins and ancestors. Unfortunately, today we are limited to the great apes. If there's a new species of great ape hidden away from us, then they hold another page to the book of the human story. That hidden page would unlock a whole new chapter in our story, making acquiring and protecting said page top priority. One such page might lie in the forests surrounding the city of Bili in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This page details an enormous 6-foot-tall aggressive ape species that appears to be a cross between gorilla and chimp. Is it real? A hoax? A bit of both? Let's figure it out. Stories of wild men go back millennia. Sasquatch and the Yeti are only very recent incarnations of the archetype, while giants, trolls, and goblins are older. Even the gorilla was once a scary story to tell in the dark. It therefore comes as no surprise that a few apes originate in anecdotes and haunting tales told to white colonial explorers. The simplest explanation, and usually the correct one, is that most of these accounts are complete bollocks. Many go nowhere with little to no hard evidence, or even putty-textured evidence to go on. The biggest hairy ape men of cryptozoology leave very little which can be tested scientifically. One of these rumored apes is different though, for they leave not only the usual footprints, hair, scat, video, and photos, but skins, bones, DNA, on top of detailed observations made by accredited scientists published in accredited journals, which have gone through peer review. This is the Bili or Bondo ape.
Have you ever went and looked for the Bondo ape?
No, I know what it is, but no, never gone and looked for it.
They're sure that's a real thing.
Really?
Yeah, they've got skulls and hair samples and photographs and video. And for people who don't know what we're talking about, it's a gigantic chimpanzee.
Right.
Like a 6-foot-tall chimpanzee.
Oh, alright, that's enough of Horse-Paced Joe. The story begins in the town of Bili, located in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, along the Wela River. Bili is also the name of a river tributary which runs through the far north of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. South of this area lie deep tropical rainforests, but near Bili, the environment changes to wetlands and forests broken up by patches of savanna. Gorilla skulls were collected in this area as early as 1898, but demonstrably in 1908 and taken home by a Belgian army officer. That officer donated the skulls to Belgium's Royal Museum for Central Africa, located in Tervuren. Decades later, the museum's curator named a new subspecies of gorilla based on these specimens, Gorilla walensis. Enter British-Australian biologist and anthropologist Colin Groves, who got to work reanalyzing the skulls in the late 1960s till 1970. Groves figured with 40-ish years of hindsight that the gorilla skulls were indistinguishable from those of the already known Western gorillas. Oddly enough, no further specimens of these gorillas have been recovered from the Bili area since. Now we jump ahead 26 years. Swiss-born, Kenya-based wildlife photographer and conservationist Carl Amann had seen mysterious skulls in a Belgian museum that appeared to be neither gorilla nor chimp, and that were said to have been collected from the Bili-Weyur region by early colonists in 1898. In 1996, Amann embarked on a quest to rediscover the mysterious gorillas. Instead of mystery gorillas, Amann found unusual ape skulls for sale in Bili, which reportedly contained characteristics of both chimps and gorillas. The skulls had the dimensions of a chimp but a sagittal crest like a gorilla. On Amann's trip, he also purchased a photograph from hunters that seemed to show what appeared to be a very large chimp. Amann measured fecal droppings and footprints much larger than chimps or gorillas, but he never did find or see these mystery apes. The project continued for many years, but was impeded by the 5-year-long Second Congo War. Aman and a group of other researchers returned to the area in 2000 to gather more secondary or tertiary pieces of evidence, like hair and ground nests. Ground nests are unusual to find in an area historically populated by chimps, as only gorillas are known to make ground nests. Another Aman-led expedition was made in 2001, but it came up empty too. That Second Congo War ended in 2003, making it easier to get back to the country and do more field research. Aman took experimental psychologist, National Geographic affiliated Shelley Williams, stocked with a $20,000 research grant from National Geographic, along with the team. Williams is reported to have been the first to lay eyes on the Bili apes. Williams and the team were finally successful in finding the critters and returned with a bunch of videos of them. According to Williams, "We could hear them in the trees, about 10 meters away, and 4 suddenly came rushing through the brush towards me. If this had been a mock charge, they would have been screaming to intimidate us. These guys were quiet, and they were huge. They were coming in for the kill, but as soon as they saw my face, they stopped and disappeared." According to Williams, they have a very flat face, a wide muzzle, and their brow ridge runs straight across and overhangs. They seem to turn gray very early in life, but instead of turning gray-black like a gorilla, they turn gray all over. They were said to develop uniform gray fur independently of age and sex. This suggested to researchers, probably Williams mostly, that the apes grayed early on in life. This is in opposition to the way gorillas age. Only male gorillas gray as they age, and that graying is restricted to the back, hence the silverback moniker. Williams' initial claims about the apes' appearance posited them as bipedal and over 6 feet in height. In fact, she said they looked like giant chimpanzees. As such, they looked more like something from our own evolutionary history, the Australopithecines of old. Perhaps something like Sahelanthropus tachadensis, an ancient genus of hominid close to the chimp-human divergence. Though research published in 2020 found that this ape was most likely not bipedal, so that kinda throws the comparison out the window, huh? Hindsight 2020 and all that. Apparently, Williams knows Lingala, the local dialect, and she says the locals have specific words to describe 2 types of populations of chimps in the area. One, presumably the chimps everyone's familiar with, they call tree beaters, as they stay up in the trees for safety and succumb to the locals' poison arrows. The other, presumably the rumored Bili apes, they call lion killers. The lion killers seldom climb trees, are bigger and darker, and are unaffected by poison arrows. Oddly, some other reports say that Aman made these statements. As you'll find out, there's a lot of fishy stuff surrounding the Bili apes. Only a single skull collected from Bili shows the odd brow ridge and sagittal crest that started the whole mystery ape thing. The sagittal crest is similar in size to the gorilla. The rest of the skull is like most other chimps. Since only one skull of the Bili apes shows these weird characteristics, it cannot be used to generalize characteristics to the entire population of Bili apes. In other words, it is an outlier. Williams argued Bili apes show characteristics that just aren't seen in known chimps. The unique characteristics they exhibit just don't fit into the other groups of apes. At the very least, we have a unique, isolated chimp culture that's unlike any that's been studied. She thought them a new species unknown to science, or maybe a subspecies of chimp. For some reason, she also thought it possible these apes were a hybrid of gorilla and chimp, despite how genetically impossible this is. At the very least, she noted, the Bili apes may represent a unique culture of known chimps. Williams' claims were quite sensational, and that made neither her, Aman, nor the real research being done look good in the eyes of the media, let alone the scientific community. According to a 2003 Time magazine article about the Bili apes, Williams stated the apes made a distinct vocalization, something like a howl. On top of that, she said this howl got louder when the full moon rose and set. Yup, she said she observed them howling at the moon. Of course, all other researchers involved with the project have disputed this, and the howling thing was entirely anecdotal. If it was really an observed behavior, Williams could have and should have recorded it, even all the way back in 2003. The first indication that some skepticism was warranted was when it turned out Dr. Shelley Williams had no relevant credentials. Her PhD was in experimental psychology. Moreover, it turned out that her claims of a possible hybrid were not representative of what the other scientists on site had already determined. In a 2000 letter blasting her popularly reported claims, Carl Amon wrote, "There are at least 2 pictures available of chimpanzees looking larger than what is considered average size, but the aforementioned scientists do not consider them conclusive. They are, however, a lot more conclusive than any of the video footage Dr. Williams returned with, much shot by one of the trackers who has been with the project since 1999. Besides that footage, there is absolutely nothing Dr. Williams has contributed that was not known and established before she got involved. Needless to say, that we are totally dismayed with Dr. Williams' unprofessional attitude and her unscientific and mendacious press release. It was at this point that Amon essentially severed his ties with Shelley Williams, as she was no longer welcome to study the apes with him and his team. They didn't need people ranting and raving about speculations and possibilities when they were just trying to do real work to document these real apes. Bizarre results or overzealous hypotheses are to be saved for when you're back in the lab and actually testing stuff hands-on. Williams, having not had enough of the Bili apes, vowed to continue her work on the apes without Amon and his team, with expeditions of her own. So, with all the bits and pieces of the apes collected so far, what could be made of them? Mitochondrial DNA tests were conducted on hair samples taken from nests found in 2003. Mitochondrial DNA is the stuff you get from your mom. It's passed down from mom to mom since forever. It helps researchers trace ancestry. The DNA tests came back unequivocally Pan-troglodytes schweinfurthii, the eastern chimpanzee, an already known species. Cleve Hicks, a primatologist recruited to the research team in later years, stated, in reference to the DNA and morphology of the Bili apes, "Genetically, they're not even a subspecies." Williams' response to this result was, perhaps unsurprisingly, that all the samples could have been contaminated by human and real chimp DNA, or perhaps surprisingly, that the conventional mitochondrial DNA test couldn't be used in chimps because it was originally meant for humans. Okay, sure. Another example of moving the goalposts saw Williams suggest that since mitochondrial DNA is only transmitted through mothers, it wouldn't show a one-way hybridization, which the Bili apes could apparently be. Remember Chimparilla? Alrighty then. By 2004, Amon had recruited primatologist Cleve Hicks, now an associate professor at the Faculty of Artes Liberales, University of Warsaw. Hicks was studying several chimp communities about 60 kilometers northwest of Bili. These apes were reported to approach humans in ways similar to eyewitness reports collected years ago. They surround people and show some level of curiosity but don't attack and then just kinda leave. Amon and company were able to track down the apes in the region near the city of Bondo, which is about 200 kilometers west of Bili. Hicks noted that this chimp population behaves more like gorillas than chimps. For example, as I mentioned earlier, they build ground nests as gorillas do. They interweave branches and/or saplings together, bent down into a central bowl-shaped structure. This unusual behavior has been hypothesized as a way to avoid the dampness of the ground, which may be higher than in habitats of other chimp populations. Contrasting the lion killer versus tree beater monikers of the different apes, the Bili or Bondo ape nesting behavior is not a permanent part of their repertoire, as they will also nest in the trees like most other chimp populations. Those ground nests will also be found beneath or quite close to the tree nests, so this would make sense for this to be a learned behavior specific to this population. They were found to be mostly frugivores, feasting on fruits such as strangler figs. In 2005, Williams suffered a paralyzing accident, resulting in a complete halt of her claims in the media. On top of that, she never mounted her planned expeditions. Hicks and his colleagues completed another long expedition looking for the Bili apes in 2006, resulting in over 20 hours of footage of these apes. The team had to move 50 to 55 kilometers from Bili in the forests around Congo. This was because of an influx of human activity in the area due to gold found there. The apes had grown wearier of people and moved. Hicks and company noted nothing particularly gorilla-y about these guys. They supposedly do most of the same things that chimps do. More DNA samples were tested, this time from feces, and were found to belong again to the eastern chimpanzee. That was pretty much the end of it. Hicks said, "I see nothing gorilla about them. The females definitely have a chimp's sex swellings. They pant hoot and tree drum and so on." Hicks and colleagues published a new comprehensive paper describing the chimps of the Bili region in 2019. They completely ignore any and all mention of the giant aggressive ape controversy of a decade ago and simply report on everything found about these chimps. There are no large aggressive lion killer chimbarillas wandering the forests of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There is a unique population of chimps in the region that are simply just slightly culturally distinct from other populations. Pretty much the only physical traits that distinguish the Bili or Bondo apes from other chimps are slightly larger heads, slightly larger overall size, and that many gray relatively early in their lives. How can these admittedly slight differences be accounted for? According to a Skeptoid magazine article by Brian Dunning, recall your high school biology. You inherited one gene for eye color from your mother and one from your father. If you happen to get both recessive genes for blue eyes, you'll have blue eyes. Otherwise, you'll have brown eyes. These alternative forms of the same gene are called alleles, and when you travel around the world, you'll find populations where certain alleles are found in greater frequencies. Varying allele frequencies associated with traits like skin color, hair type, and face shape in places like Nigeria, China, and Norway are what gave rise to the idea of race. But as we now know, we're all exactly the same race, the human race, with different allele frequencies that can be endlessly mixed and matched. The chimpanzees in the Bili region are one such population. Compare Bili chimps with populations in other parts of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and you may indeed find greater frequencies of alleles favoring large size and early graying of fur. To whatever extent these traits may actually exist in the Bili population. Even the sagittal crest on the skull that Amon found is rare for chimps, but still within the range of normal variation. Even though these apes are not some mystery species, they still suffer from human encroachment just as any other chimp population. Primates throughout the Congo region are hunted for bushmeat. This occurs less often north of the Wela region. On a subjective, personal level, I will just never understand the ethics of eating an animal that is so visually similar to your own species. But I also understand the economically dire situations of the majority of these areas. In my opinion, I can understand eating dog or horse before eating a monkey or ape, but that's just me. Aside from the bushmeat market, the Bili area saw an influx in gold miners in 2007. This prompted concern by Westerners of the animals in the region. Hicks and colleagues documented 34 chimps and 31 carcasses for sale in the cities of Buta, Aketi, and Bambesa from September to November of 2007, so the fear was well warranted. So, there you have it. I think this is one of the first instances of a cryptid based on a real mystery animal species, with full documentation since the forest ungulates of the Congo in the 1970s and the okapi in the early 1900s. Just so happens that this one wasn't even a mystery species, but a newly documented population of a pre-existing one. Didn't stop cryptozoologists from jumping at the opportunity to use them as proof of Bigfoot and other mystery primates. The mystery of the Bili apes is solved. Joe Rogan can rest easy that he only has to compete with regular chimps, gorillas, and bonobos. Though he might be busy second-guessing life-saving medicine, but that's a discussion for another time. For more interesting stories about nature, the history of life, or what goes bump in the night, subscribe, hit the bell icon for updates, like this video, and drop a comment in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my elephant tier patrons, Ray, Isaiah Garza, Dinosaur, Christoph Hubinger, Biotaverse, and Arda Bayer. And another thanks to my Tyrannosaurus tier patrons, The Dogman, Iron Bladesman, Danny Van Heck, and Dana Manchester.